I did a video for Universal Audio on their plugin release of the Ruby, the Lion, and the Dream 65. Now, I was sponsored for that video. They paid me money and provided the plugins for free, but I didn't really even see that as a real sponsorship. I just see it as payment for me sifting through UA emails day after day after day and deleting them from my inbox. I'm just kidding about that, sort of. But I had a chat with a friend, and he was saying, do you have any friends that you think would be spending sort of £150 on a plugin like this when you could get Helix Native for £400? And I kind of thought, that's an interesting thought.
This channel is supported by TrueFire. TrueFire is an online library of lessons from some of my favourite players. There's thousands of lessons on there. You can use the promo code JNC40 to get 40% off of any of their courses.
The introduction UA Ruby, well, same settings as Helix Native, and then they're both going through the same cab. You're going to hear the switch between the two, so let me know if you can hear a big difference. One other thing to comment on here really is that I think there is this difficult situation where you're paying more money for less, but I do think that there are significant differences in how it feels to use each piece of stuff. And so I think there is this like ultimate kind of conversation which is going to go on where it's like, well, I only need a Vox AC30 emulation and a room emulation and a few IRs to choose from, or speaker models. I don't need all of this stuff. And then on the other side, there's going to be like the impossible point to refute, which is like, I could basically make Helix Native sound pretty much like anything. And there is this kind of point on this. So let me know in the comments whether you're of the UA persuasion. Another thing to comment on actually is that the full price is a bit misleading of some of this stuff, because I've just seen today, and this is basically every day you get some sort of deal like this coming through from UA, but you can pick 3 plugins for $109 at the moment. And if you click through on that, all of the plugins, those emulations, are included. So Lion, Ruby, and Dream 65, you could get those for $109, so less than the price of one of them. I think this is the thing with UA, they do discount almost all of the time. So don't be necessarily put off by the higher price. I think that higher price is really there to give the idea of like an RRP and the idea of premium, but they're always discounting stuff. So if you're thinking, I want to try some of these plugins, then don't be too put off by the price, I would say, because you can get it for way cheaper if you just subscribe to their emails. You will get 600 emails a day though. So let's jump in and let me know your thoughts. Cheers.
Okay, so first of all, I think the huge difference that you're going to get really is the simplicity of the plugin, and that's not to be dismissed. I don't think about some of this stuff as marketing, packaging and selling stuff, but at the same time, this is a different workflow altogether from this, right? So in terms of what I've got going on here, in Helix, I'm just using the Helix A30, which, important to note as well, this is one of the earlier amp models that they made. So they do talk about that they've got better at creating amp models, essentially. So worth keeping in mind to some extent that if they made an AC30 again these days, it might be more accurate even and better. You never know. Drive at 7.5, the bass at 5, cut at 0, treble at 5.8, channel volume at 7.2, master at 10. I'm using the same cab for both just so we can get some idea of what the actual amp modelling is sounding like, rather than hearing the difference between IRs, which is obviously a huge part of the sound and very difficult to judge if we keep those things different. I'm using a Cali V30 here for the sake of this because it's a cab that I know the sound of. So this is the same across both sounds that you're going to hear. High cut at 6 kilohertz and then using a Glitz reverb. So pointing out, we don't have a noise gate in the Ruby. And this is one of the things that you're going to notice really in terms of, I guess, workflow, that you're missing some things within the Ruby, and you're going to need to supplement that with other stuff. Whereas I think in the Helix world, you might find that you're quite pleasantly well taken care of. Anyway, so here's the Helix sound. So the immediate thing that leaps out to me is that the UA has a much more warm kind of top end, whereas that's quite kind of brittle. So we could, I guess, try and compensate for that in a couple of ways. Maybe I should get rid of that. If we were to go in here and add in a low-high shelf, we could potentially, we'll put this after the amp. I feel like, yeah, still there is a difference there in terms of the high end. Another thing we could do is start to bring in a high cut above what we've already done. And this is one of the things that Cliff said is going on. Cliff from Fractal, by the way, in the UA stuff.
In a mix, I think I could find things that I like about both of them. If I was looking for more glassy kind of Vox tones, I think Helix Native would be actually where I'd be going. And maybe the thing that sounds a little bit more Voxy to me are those glassy tones. Now, an element to also bear in mind is that you've got the cabs built in here. And we've got the other channels. You know, if I went in here, the workflow is totally different. You know, I'm picking from these kind of amps that look a bit like it. I'm going into my cabs and I'm finding, for instance, now we're looking for what, a silver bell. What was the mic that we were using there? U47. One of the key things is that it's louder here. Now, if I was to copy this, so I think that probably gives you some fair idea. Kind of showing you some of the differences, such that there are any there, and also giving you some sense about what the workflow is like for either of them. I did do a video for Universal Audio, but as I said in the intro there, I got asked, like, what do I think comparing these? I'll actually do the other two amps as well if you're interested in that. Of course, the other thing to bear in mind with Helix, you know, I'm only here using an amp, cab, 2 EQs here, just to try and match that a bit more, and then the reverb's the same on each of them. But of course, with the Vox style amplifier, another thing to bear in mind is you're going to want a gate as well,
Probably. And there are these other elements that you're going to want, like a tuner. This is one of the things that, for me, workflow-wise, I was kind of missing from the Universal Audio system. The ability to load IRs, potentially, you do that afterwards. Or, you know, you might pair it with your other favourite delays and stuff like that. But for me, you know, having all of that in the Helix native kind of ecosystem kind of makes a lot of sense for me. But I can sort of see the value in both, and the difference in workflow, I think, is really what we're kind of looking at in a lot of ways here. And equally, variety that you've got here, you've got another set of different amp. Essentially, we've got an Helix Ac30, we've got Fawn normal, Fawn bright, mattress channel 1 and mattress channel 2, mattress with the jumped. You know, if you're looking at these kind of tones, then the mattress amp might even be So I don't think you can beat Helix native for value at all. I think you can beat it in terms of workflow. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Are you somebody who needs to, like, value for money in your plugins, or do you buy into this idea that you can kind of get a simpler workflow and get more by spending more and actually getting less? Let me know what you reckon. Also, you've got the room feature in this as well, which I think can add quite a lot. But again, you know, are you someone who's going to want a noise gate? You know, I think it's pretty cool stuff, but is it at the end of the day so much ahead of Helix native? You letting me know your thoughts.